Every morning, somewhere over the deep ocean, a sperm whale surfaces carrying fresh wounds. Circular scars, some the size of dinner plates, pressed into the skin around its head and jaw. Suction cup signatures, ringed with marks from something that gripped back. This whale is 60 feet long. It weighs 50 tons. Its brain, the largest of any animal that has ever existed, averages 7 kilograms of tissue, more than 5 times heavier than a human's. It navigates by echolocation clicks measured at 236 decibels, the loudest biological sound ever recorded. By every measure available to biology, it's the apex predator of this planet. And something below 1,000 meters is making it bleed. In the entire ocean, there is exactly one animal that does this consistently, in the abyss, against a creature that has no natural enemies as an adult. No human has ever seen the fight. It takes place in total darkness, under pressures exceeding 100 atmospheres, at depths where solar light hasn't penetrated since the ocean formed. Everything we know about this war comes from 2 kinds of evidence: the scars on the winner's skin and the beaks in the winner's stomach. Thousands of them, from single animals, accumulating in the one material that chemistry couldn't dissolve. This is the other side of the story we told you last week. The colossal squid always loses the fight. The beak counts prove it beyond any reasonable argument. But it is the only animal alive that makes the ocean's apex predator pay a biological cost for every meal. That was the shape of this war for 100 years. Then, a camera changed it. The colossal squid, Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, was formally named in 1925. Guy Coburn Robson described it in the Annals and Magazine of Natural History from 2 arm crown fragments found inside a sperm whale's stomach near the South Shetland Islands at the foot of the Atlantic. Not from an observation, not from a capture, from anatomy retrieved from inside the animal that ate it. The species name Hamiltoni commemorates E. Hamilton, who obtained those original fragments from the whale. From the first moment science knew this creature existed, it knew it only as evidence of something already consumed. The attribution of those opening scars deserves a clean statement before the evidence builds. The circular marks documented across sperm whale populations are most commonly attributed in the scientific literature to large deep-sea squids broadly, the giant squid, Architeuthis ducks, whose toothed sucker rings leave characteristic circular wounds, is cited most often by name, including by the Smithsonian Ocean Portal. The colossal squid is anatomically different, armed with rotating hooks rather than toothed rings, which would produce different wound morphology. Forensic attribution of any given scar to a specific squid species isn't possible from skin alone, and the record for many whales simply says large deep-sea squid, without specifying which. The stomach data makes the colossal squid's role in this war undeniable on its own terms. The scars are the right image to open with because they are real, and the war is real. The uncertainty is about which species marked which whale, not about whether the war exists. The Norse kraken, the island-sized, ship-swallowing monster of sailor mythology, was almost certainly inspired by real sightings of large cephalopods. The actual animal is more interesting than the myth and requires no embellishment. The battlefield is the bathypelagic zone, the midnight layer of the ocean, between roughly 1,000 and 4,000 meters below the surface. Below approximately 1,000 meters, solar light no longer penetrates at any detectable level. The mesopelagic twilight zone above it, from about 200 meters down to 1,000, receives only fractions of a % of surface irradiance. Below 1,000 meters, there is nothing but bioluminescence, living organisms generating cold, chemical light in an otherwise total blackout. Sperm whales dive into this zone routinely. Foraging dives commonly reach 600 to 1,200 meters. The deepest confirmed sperm whale dive sits at 2,992 meters. Colossal squid adults occupy primarily the meso and bathypelagic zones, roughly 500 meters down to over 2,000, with juveniles found shallower and adults pushing deeper. The cephalopod size reference from Wikipedia notes their vertical distribution correlates directly with age. Young squid at 0 to 500 meters, adolescents at 500 to 2,000, adults in the mesopelagic and bathypelagic regions of the open ocean. In 2012, a Japanese team from the National Science Museum filmed a giant squid alive in its natural habitat for the first time, using specialized cameras and bioluminescent lures off the Ogasawara Islands. They found it at approximately 640 meters, still within the twilight zone, where faint residual light from the surface allows camera systems to function with specialized equipment. The colossal squid's war zone with the sperm whale is hundreds of meters deeper than that, in permanent darkness, against a 50-ton predator navigating by sonar rather than sight. No camera has gone there and found the fight in progress. The ocean is vast, encounters are sparse, and the zone has no light whatsoever. The only proof of what happens in the dark comes from what's found inside the whale. 2 exhibits. The skin is the scorecard, each scar dated to one descent, a per-battle tally that accumulates across the whale's decades of life. The Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust describes sperm whale skin as bearing circular scars along the body, marks that accumulate until, on older animals, they overlap each other entirely. The stomach is the cumulative archive. The archive works because squid beaks don't digest. They're composed of highly cross-linked chitinous material, the same molecular class as insect exoskeleton and crustacean shell, which resists proteolytic digestion entirely. Everything else about the squid dissolves in the whale's stomach acids within hours or days. The beak stays. Sperm whale stomachs are multi-chambered. Beaks accumulate in the second chamber, retained for roughly 1 to 2.5 days on average, occasionally up to 10 days. Each one represents a separate feeding event. A single stomach sample is a running log of days or weeks of predation history compressed into one anatomical space. Malcolm Clark, the British cephalopod researcher who published the foundational 1980 Discovery Reports monograph Cephalopoda in the Diet of Sperm Whales of the Southern Hemisphere, built the first systematic beak reference collections during the whaling era. Clark examined hundreds of sperm whale stomachs and identified more than 129,000 lower beaks across 461 samples. His 1986 Handbook for Cephalopod Beak Identification remains the baseline reference. Every stomach content study of a sperm whale since has been built on that methodology. What that methodology returned, across decades of stranding analysis from the Azores to the Antarctic to the Mediterranean, is the scale of the war. A male sperm whale that stranded on the beach at Forte dei Marmi in Italy's Ligurian Sea was found with 524 cephalopod beaks in its stomach, 233 upper and 291 lower, a multi-species assemblage representing days of feeding at depth. A whale analysed after stranding near Kaikoura on New Zealand's South Island yielded approximately 10,000 beaks, representing 5,000 individual squid from more than 20 deep-sea cephalopod species. An Australian study of 36 sperm whales from 2 mass strandings in southern Australia recovered 101,883 cephalopod beaks from those animals combined, representing 48 squid species and 2 octopods. Clark's 1986 work documented the documented extreme. Over 18,000 beaks recovered from a single sperm whale stomach. Not 1,800, 18,000. Each one the preserved remnant of a separate animal, caught in darkness, consumed, and left behind in the one material that chemistry couldn't erase. An Azorean whaling study, 17 sperm whales caught commercially between 1981 and 1984, recovered 28,738 cephalopods and 16 fish from those stomachs, with 40 squid species identified from lower beaks alone. The methodology for identifying species within those thousands of beaks is the same Clark established. Compare lower rostral length and morphology against a reference collection built from known specimens. Lower beaks are the primary identification tool because they carry more diagnostic features than upper beaks. Clark's equations then translate beak dimension to estimated body mass. In Antarctic and sub-Antarctic waters, the colossal squid's primary range, Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni, dominates that archive by mass. A Patagonian male that stranded at Comodoro Rivadavia, Argentina in March 1986, after what appears to have been a northward migration from southern feeding grounds, yielded beaks from 15 cephalopod species in 9 families. Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni contributed roughly 33% of total beaks by number and approximately 62% of estimated total biomass. Clark's broader southern hemisphere synthesis found that colossal squid can represent approximately 76% of cephalopod biomass consumed by Antarctic sperm whales in some southern samples. A figure arrived at because 14% of the beaks are colossal squid beaks, but colossal squid are so much heavier per individual than most other cephalopods that a minority of the beak count represents most of the actual weight of food consumed. In Antarctic waters, the colossal squid is the primary meal. The beak also encodes what we can't see alive. The measurement is the lower rostral length, a straight line from the rostral tip to the jaw angle of the lower beak. Through allometric equations formalized by Clark and later refined by José Javier and Yves Cherel in their 2009 Beak Identification Guide, this single number translates to an estimate of dorsal mantle length, then total length and mass. It's a system for calculating a body from the one piece of it that chemistry couldn't dissolve. The largest colossal squid specimen ever directly measured was the 2007 Ross Sea female, captured alive at the surface by the New Zealand fishing vessel San Aspiring after it attacked a toothfish on a long line at 1,500 meters depth. The animal was dying when it arrived at the surface, entangled in fishing lines, and was brought aboard. After 14 months of frozen storage, it was thawed at Te Papa Tongarewa in Wellington and measured during April and May 2008. 495 kilograms, 2.5 meters mantle length, 6 meters total length. The tentacles had contracted significantly during freezing. Specimens of the New Zealand arrow squid can shrink by as much as 22% when dehydrated, and the Ross Sea colossal squid contracted a further 5% after several years in preservative fluid. The living animal was almost certainly longer. Its beak had a lower rostral length of 42.5 millimeters. Te Papa noted in their own records, "The beak is considerably smaller than some found in the stomachs of sperm whales." The largest colossal squid beak ever recovered from a whale stomach measured 49 millimeters, 6.5 millimeters larger than the beak of a 495-kilogram animal. Te Papa's scientists stated directly, "A few millimeters difference in beak size corresponds with a much bigger squid overall, possibly 600 or 700 kilograms." The arms of the 2007 specimen ranged from 85 to 115 centimeters. The tentacles measured approximately 2.1 meters. Scale those proportions upward through the allometric equations, and total length estimates for the largest beak run to somewhere between 9 and 15 meters. The upper bound sits at approximately 14 meters, 45 feet. Estimated entirely from a beak in a whale's stomach, belonging to an animal that no researcher has ever seen alive at full adult size. The largest confirmed colossal squid measured 6 meters. The one implied by the largest recovered beak is estimated from that beak alone at close to triple that. That gap between confirmed and implied is where the colossal squid has lived in the scientific imagination for a century. Known from remnants, sized from evidence left inside its predator. Now for the weapons. In pitch-black water, with a 50-ton predator descending toward it by sonar, the colossal squid's eyes are the first line of the encounter. The 2007 Ross Sea specimen had an eye diameter of 27 centimeters post-thaw, about the size of a soccer ball, as Tipapa described it. The lens was spherical, 80 to 90 millimeters across, roughly the size of an orange, carefully removed during dissection and preserved for display. Scientists present included visual ecologists Dan Erik Nielsen and Eric Warrant, who had traveled from Sweden specifically to study the eyes. They confirmed them as the largest animal eyes ever directly studied. The 2014 specimen, a second large female from the Ross Sea, dissected in a live webcast watched by over 800,000 people from more than 180 countries, measured larger. Dr. Kat Bolstad of Auckland University of Technology led that dissection and called out the measurement directly during the webcast. The one that we measured on the previous specimen was about 27 centimeters, and this one is looking like about 35 centimeters. We're going to say the diameter on this is about 35 centimeters. Tipapa's published record from that examination gives 37 centimeters, the largest animal eyes ever directly recorded. The next largest eyes in the animal kingdom belong to the swordfish, at roughly 9 centimeters in diameter. The colossal squids are approximately 4 times larger in linear measurement, meaning their light collecting area is roughly 16 times greater. In 2012, Nielsen and colleagues published a model in Current Biology titled "A Unique Advantage for Giant Eyes in Giant Squid." The dispatch accompanying the paper in the same journal summarized the finding plainly. The huge eyes of giant and colossal squid have evolved for a particular low-resolution visual task, to spot large, dimly glowing, approaching whales. Eyes of 27 centimeters or larger aren't performing ordinary visual tasks more efficiently than smaller eyes would. The mathematics shows they are optimized for one specific challenge: detecting the bioluminescent disturbance generated when a large object moves through bioluminescent plankton. A descending sperm whale displaces water, triggering a halo of bioluminescence ahead of it, light produced by organisms disturbed by the bow wave of the approaching predator. An eye of this size can detect that glow at distances of approximately 120 meters, according to the model. That 120-meter figure isn't arbitrary. It corresponds to the upper limit of the sperm whale's own sonar range. The squid evolved eyes large enough to see the whale arriving before the whale can locate the squid by click. Each eyeball also carries a photophore, a light organ on its ventral surface, producing bioluminescence through a bacterial chemical reaction that runs continuously. Tipapa describes them as functioning like headlights. When the eyes rotate inward to focus directly in front of the arms and tentacles, the photophores illuminate the hunting zone immediately ahead. The colossal squid's eyes face forward, giving it binocular, stereoscopic vision capable of judging distance precisely, necessary for the accuracy its tentacle strike requires. The giant squid's eyes sit on the sides of its head, maximizing wide-field peripheral detection for a different set of threats. 2 different animals, shaped by 2 different versions of the darkness. Then the arms. 8 shorter arms lined with suckers and non-rotating hooks. 2 longer tentacles ending in clubs. Each club carries 2 rows of swiveling hooks, approximately 22 to 25 per club, flanked by rows of tiny, marginal suckers. Each hook sits on a short stalk in a depression and can rotate through 360 degrees. Tipapa's anatomy page states this directly. The colossal squid is unique because it has rotating hooks on the club-shaped ends of the tentacles, used for grabbing and holding prey. The Tonmo giant squid and colossal squid fact sheet confirms the tentacle club, the expanded distal portion of the tentacle, is endowed with 2 rows of swiveling hooks. This isn't the grip system of a giant squid. Architeuthis uses toothed sucker rings, chitinous circles with serrated inner edges that rasp and score when they grip. Those rings, when they contact skin, leave circular impressions. which is why the Smithsonian Ocean Portal attributes the circular scars on sperm whale skin specifically to giant squid. The colossal squid's tentacle clubs carry hooks that rotate as prey pulls against them, engaging deeper rather than releasing. Against an animal fighting to be free, the physics works in the squid's favor. The harder the prey pulls, the more the hooks turn into the contact surface. Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni is the only member of its family, the Cranchidae, the glass squids, to carry hooks on both arms and tentacles. Every other cranchiid manages with suckers alone. Wikipedia's colossal squid entry is precise on this point. The colossal squid is the only squid in its family whose arms and tentacles are equipped with hooks, either swiveling or three-pointed. This species is the endpoint of whatever selective pressure depth and large prey applied to that lineage over evolutionary time. At the center of all those arms sits the beak, the largest known of any squid, larger and more robust than the giant squid's beak, composed of chitin hard enough to slice through toothfish flesh and chemically resistant enough to survive inside a whale's digestive system for years. The beak slices prey into pieces that can pass through the squid's esophagus, which runs through the center of its donut-shaped brain. The radula, a tongue-like organ covered in teeth, then shreds those pieces further before they reach the stomach. The beak is the tool that makes the squid's deep-sea feeding strategy possible. It's also the tool that makes the forensic record possible, because it's the one part of the squid that a sperm whale can't digest. The strategy the whole system serves isn't to win, it's to make the encounter expensive. Detect the whale early, grip when contact comes, hold on with hooks that tighten under tension, and make this meal cost more than the whale calculated before it dove. The whale wins, almost every time, as a dietary fact. 18,000 beaks in one stomach isn't the record of a rivalry between equals, it's a feeding log. In 2010, Rui Rosa of the Universidade de Lisboa and Brad Seibel of the University of Rhode Island published a paper in the Journal of the Marine Biological Association of the United Kingdom. Slow pace of life of the Antarctic colossal squid. The methodological caveat matters. They couldn't directly measure the metabolic rate of a living colossal squid. No one ever has held one long enough. Instead, they used phylogenetic inference and allometric scaling across smaller cranchiid relatives to estimate metabolic parameters for Mesonicoteuthis at depth. The mass-specific routine metabolic rate they arrived at, approximately 0.036 micromoles of oxygen per hour per gram at 1.5 degrees Celsius. Daily energy consumption, roughly 45 kilocalories. Daily prey requirement, approximately 30 grams, for an animal that can weigh nearly 500 kilograms. Their published conclusion was direct. We argue that the colossal squid isn't a voracious predator capable of high-speed predator-prey interactions. It's rather an ambush or sit-and-float predator that uses the hooks on its arms and tentacles to ensnare prey that unwittingly approach. A semantic scholar summary of the paper adds a specific comparison. The metabolic rate is significantly 63% lower than the metabolic scaling rule for aquatic species of equivalent mass. Practical Fishkeeping's coverage of the study placed it against one of the most energetically active squid in the ocean, the Humboldt squid, Dositicus gigas, known for rapid vertical migrations covering hundreds of meters daily and metabolic demands that require near constant feeding. Rosa and Seibel's estimate for the colossal squid runs 300 to 600 times lower than that. Seibel's earlier 1997 study of 33 species of pelagic cephalopods had established the underlying pattern. Metabolic rate decreases systematically with minimum depth of occurrence across cephalopod species. The deeper the animal lives, the slower it burns. Mesonicoteuthis lives deepest of all the large squid. It burns slowest. Rosa and Seibel are explicit that their figure is inferred, not measured. Future direct measurement could revise it. What no revision can reconcile with this inference is the image of the colossal squid as a high-speed aggressor wrestling a 50-ton whale into submission. The energy budget for 30 grams of prey per day doesn't support that behavior. This animal floats in the dark, burning 45 kilocalories a day, and waits for something to come close enough to grip. When the whale comes, the hooks engage. The grip costs the whale something. Effort to disengage, tissue damage in water too cold for rapid healing. Then the squid loses. Losing was never the point. The point was the cost imposed. The whale wins every fight and carries the evidence of each one permanently. On older animals, the marks are dense enough to overlap. The Natural History Museum's account of sperm whales states that the scars left on the whale's skin indicate the struggles of the monsters. Scars attributed broadly to large squid encounters across a lifetime of Antarctic foraging. Every descent into colossal squid territory leaves a potential mark. Over decades of active foraging, those marks accumulate into a continuous record of encounters with the dark. The colossal squid loses every fight. The Southern Ocean is still full of them. The predation pressure on Mesonicoteuthis in Antarctic waters is sustained and enormous. 3/4 of the cephalopod biomass that southern sperm whale populations consume in some Antarctic samples is colossal squid. The colossal squid compensates for individual mortality with reproductive output calibrated for species-level persistence under chronic predation. Females carry estimated possible fecundity of over 4.2 million oocytes. The IUCN assesses it as least concern. A 2025 management plan for the South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands Marine Protected Area, the precise region where the first confirmed footage was taken in March 2025, still describes Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni as a notable species of the region, distributed throughout the circumpolar Southern Ocean, north to southern South America, South Africa, and New Zealand. 18,000 beaks from one stomach, and the ocean is still full of them. The defense was never victory. It was distribution. Being everywhere the whale hunts, producing millions of eggs, and never once being free of the threat. For 100 years, that was the complete record of what science had on this animal. A name from 1925, a forensic archive built from beaks and scars and dying animals hauled to the surface on long lines.
By 2015, Tapapa noted that only 12 complete colossal squid specimens had ever been recorded, with only half being full adults. Of those adult specimens, the majority came from whale stomachs, or from animals that had seized toothfish on commercial longlines and been brought to the surface against their will. No confirmed image of a living colossal squid in its own water, at depth, undisturbed. The species had been eaten thousands of times for every time it had been observed. Researchers tried to change that. An ocean exploration organization called Colossal ran surveys across 36 Southern Ocean locations in 2022 and 2023, using a tourism vessel to target territory no dedicated expedition had previously searched systematically. The team may have filmed a small juvenile, a transparent cranchiid visible on camera before marine snow obscured the image. Experts confirmed it was a glass squid, but without DNA analysis couldn't rule out Galateuthis glacialis, a closely related species that shares the same circumpolar range. As of a BBC Future report published January 30, 2025, that footage remained unconfirmed and the analysis was still ongoing. On March 9, 2025, the Schmidt Ocean Institute research vessel RV Falkor 2 was operating near the South Sandwich Islands in the South Atlantic. The expedition was conducted in partnership with Ocean Census, Japan Nekton Ocean Census, and Go South, with a mission focused on discovering new marine species in the deep waters of the region. ROV Sebastian descended through the water column on a dive targeting novel species at depth. At approximately 600 meters, within the lower Mesopelagic, where the 2007 Ross Sea capture had happened at 1,500 meters on a long line, and where the giant squid had been filmed in the twilight zone in 2012, the camera found something transparent in the water ahead of it.
a juvenile colossal squid. Approximately 30 centimeters long, about 1 foot, translucent enough that the ROV camera could see into its interior structure. Moving without urgency through water it had chosen, at a depth it had arrived at under its own power, near islands at the edge of the Southern Ocean. The footage went to Dr. Kat Bolstad at Auckland University of Technology, who had led the 2008 Te Papa dissection and measured the 27-centimeter eye, who had then led the 2014 dissection live on webcast and measured 37 centimeters and revised the record upward, who had spent more than a decade as the primary anatomical authority on this species from frozen specimens and long-line captures, and to independent cephalopod expert Dr. Aaron Evans. Their confirmation rested on the hooks, visible in the footage, in their specific positions on the arms and tentacle tips. The anatomical feature that separates Mesonychoteuthis from every other glass squid in the Cranchiidae family, the only cranchiid with hooks on both arms and tentacles, identifiable in the ROV footage even at 30 centimeters of total length. Schmidt Ocean Institute's press release, published April 15, 2025, announced, "First confirmed footage of a colossal squid, and it's a baby." CNN, NPR, BBC, and Smithsonian Magazine all covered the footage the following day, each using the same formulation. First confirmed, not a candidate, not probable, confirmed by the two scientists most qualified to make that determination, based on the one anatomical feature that distinguishes the species from every other glass squid in the water column. Schmidt Ocean Institute and the multiple news organizations that covered the footage were unambiguous. This was the first confirmed live observation of the colossal squid, Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, at depth in its natural habitat. A century after Robson described the species from arm-crown fragments inside a sperm whale. The first live image is a juvenile, 30 centimeters, translucent, calm in the way only something undisturbed can be. The most fought-over predator-prey war in the deep ocean, and our first confirmed glimpse of one of its participants alive is an animal that hasn't grown into its weapons yet. The hooks are already there. Bolstad and Evans identified them in the footage, those specific rotating hooks on the tentacle clubs, smaller now than the versions that leave marks on 50-ton whales, but architecturally complete. The same design, the same geometry, the same structure that, at full adult size in the Antarctic bathypelagic, grips and rotates and holds when a 60-foot whale tries to pull free. The 2007 Ross Sea adult weighed 495 kilograms and had an eye 27 centimeters across. The juvenile in the Schmidt footage weighed perhaps a few grams and sat at 30 centimeters of total length. Somewhere in the water column between those two data points, over months or years in the cold dark, that 30-centimeter animal will grow into the one the beaks describe. Massive, slow-burning, patient, and expensive to catch. So the war has two sides, and they are both losing in different ways. The whale wins every battle and wears every one of them. Decades of accumulated scar tissue on a creature with no other predators, proof that the abyss costs something even when you dominate it. The squid loses every battle and keeps the species undefeated. 18,000 beaks documented from a single stomach, 77% of the cephalopod biomass in some Antarctic samples, and the Southern Ocean is still full of them. For 100 years, that war was the only place we ever met this animal. As a scar, as a beak, as fragments of arm crown inside the predator that found it first, as a name applied to evidence from 1925. Then, last year, a camera finally caught one alive in its own water. Small, translucent, and calm, like the war didn't know about it yet. Next week, the whale's side of the armory. Every weapon a sperm whale carries into that darkness, and how each one works. Down in the dark, it's growing its hooks. Subscribe if this story is worth continuing.